Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you tuning in. Hope you're doing well, staying safe, taking care of those closest to you. Find joy in the daily, in your day to day, as I like to do. I'm recording this after a 6 mile bike ride. After a weekend of birthday infused heavy drinking and ice cream, so I'm still feeling pretty good. I love riding my bicycle. That is what I have found is the most encouraging for me in terms of what makes exercising not something that I dread, but something I look forward to. Is that I'm trying to find things that I am interested in, and so I enjoyed bicycling when I was in high school. So I'm doing it now. Maybe I'll do a team sport, some version of a team sport. Who knows? Anything can happen in this crazy world. I'm also coming off of, I did 3 straight nights of doing tech for shows at the People's Improv Theater in New York. We did our 2 shows of Backdoor Barbecue, and then I also did tech for a improvised dreamscape improv show called The Awakening. There's something about, I love being in the booth at this, it seats probably 40, 50 people. You could probably cram 60 if you needed to. And it's just got this really great feel. I love, especially when I have a good idea to do a lighting cue when I'm able to, or I hit the timing of something really, really nicely. I really am get excited about doing good about tech at the Pit Loft. And I really enjoy my time and the people there. You've heard some of them on this podcast, and you will hear more. And additionally, I also did stand up in New York for the first time in a while. I did my show. My friend Daniel, who's appeared on the podcast a while ago, has a show at the Bridge and Tunnel Brewery in Ridgewood. Got up there and got some good laughs. Performed on my actual birthday as well. So that was a fun way to cap off the evening before coming back and playing more of the Resident Evil 4 remake, which I am enjoying, but I am not as good at video games anymore as I was when I was younger and had nothing but time to play video games. But I'm enjoying it. And I am absolutely tickled to death to be able to share this episode of the podcast with you today. This episode came about. I got the opportunity to have this conversation. My guest on the show today is Ryan Malott, the guitarist and vocalist of the country punk band 500 Miles to Memphis. I love this band. I first discovered them, I believe I was in college. I discovered their album Sunshine in a Shot Glass, and specifically they had songs Broken, Busted, and Bloody, and All My Friends Are Crazy. And I had never heard punk rock and country music or Americana music blended together. And so when the opportunity came to talk to Ryan, I was very excited. And I got to ask him a lot of questions about that album that I had that I'd had for a while. And he also, and some of you know this, I try not to talk about myself too much on this podcast. I try to make it about who I'm talking to, but I do enjoy. I do find it nice when the guest is as interested in what I do in doing comedy as I am interested in what they do. So I am very excited to get to share this episode with you. It's a great conversation. There's a lot of really interesting and insightful kind of music industry stuff, because this is a band that has toured heavily for a number of years, put out a lot of albums, and works within the realm within show business, which as I continue to as I literally get older, as I did recently, my focus is less so on a massive big break and trying to find ways to materialize one. Not that I'd be upset about one, but my focus is less on conceiving a way for that to happen and more about finding ways to work in this field. And I've been doing that for a while. My day job is related. This is related. The stuff I do at the pit is related. So I really feel like in a way I am continuing to live out my dreams of working in the arts. This more so now than maybe I have been in recent years, and it's really kind of a sense of accomplishment and a feeling of not being done. So I can't wait to see where this continues to go, and I look forward to sharing this with anybody who wants to keep on listening. So thank you all again so much for being here, and let's chat to Ryan from 500 Miles to Memphis. So this interview I'm so happy that this is happening, because I don't know if Peter told you, but I'm been a fan of your band for a very long time.
Oh, no way, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. I remember being in college and I was a theater major. So I remember I think I was backstage, putting on makeup for a play, and we always are playing music when we're getting ready for shows. And I remember a friend of mine putting on Sunshine in a Shot Glass, and specifically All My Friends Are Crazy. And I remember thinking, this is country punk rock. What madness hath this wrought? It was the first time I'd ever heard, I guess some people call it cow punk or cow punk or whatever, but this was the first time that your band was the first time I ever heard punk and country mixed together, and it made my mind explode, Ryan.
Awesome, dude. That was the goal, back in the day. That was the whole thing we were trying to do. Just figure out, because I lived in both worlds. I loved bluegrass and country, but also loved NoFX and Green Day and Bad Religion, and it's why can't these two things live under the same roof? And so I'm glad that it spoke to you. I'm glad that you got it. A lot of people don't get it, man. Some people hate us because we're too country, and some people hate us because we're too punk. So it's the worst of both worlds, as I like to say.
Yeah, which is just insane to me, because your songs are just so good. And especially I've thought about this more and more now, especially when you think about bluegrass, that's all very very fast single notey riffy kind of stuff.
Totally.
And then you have acoustic come in and chime behind it. That is just punk with a different outfit, if you really think about it.
And bluegrass, the message of bluegrass, which obviously started in Appalachia, was always anti-authority, anti-fascist, and it's the working man's music. Obviously there's a bit of gospel in there, but I mean it was music for the common man, and just the day-to-day struggles of living in this country, and that's what punk rock is.
Oh, it absolutely is. Punk is totally music of the people. It's always resonated to me like that. The same way with Irish folk music, and of course Irish and music and punk mixed together a lot too. But especially music with an entire utter lack of pretension, and made from areas that get overlooked a lot. In the grand scheme of things. I would love to ask you, before we get deep dive in here, I'd love to talk about a couple of my favorite 500 Miles to Memphis songs. I would love to ask you what you remember about the writing of Broken, Busted, and Bloody.
Yeah, man.
I'd love to break that down.
Was yesterday. Are we recording?
Yeah, we've been recording. This is the show.
We're doing it. Sweet.
Yeah.
Broken, Busted, Bloody. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was couch surfing, and my best friend was a bartender at this place in Cincinnati called Neon's, and he always hooked me up with free drinks. So,
Uh-huh.
I would go out a couple nights a week, get free drinks, and then that turned into 7 nights a week, and then it turned into me crashing at his house every single night of the week and just like kind of slowly moving in with him. So anyway, one more, it was it was an all-nighter. Probably went to bed at like 5 in the morning, and I just woke up with a little melody in my head. And he was a musician as well, so he had an acoustic guitar sitting there. And I just picked it up and I just kind of started strumming and singing along. And it was one of those songs that just kind of came to me. But lyrically, it's about my mother, who she passed away, God, almost 10 years ago now. She was alive at the time that I wrote it. But my mom she was a partier, and she went out partying, that's how she went. So anyway, it is very, if you know my mom, that song's very on the nose. It is the story of her life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So like the lines, she does a lot of cocaine, not thinking about the future. That's your mom.
Yeah.
Gnarly. So your mom went hard. From what it.
Yeah,
like.
she did. I mean, growing up, she was the best mom in the world. She was.
Oh yeah.
She was clean and sober when we were growing up, and then her and my dad got divorced, and that hit her pretty hard. And then I got to be, I don't know, my teenage years. I was kind of off doing my own thing. I was playing music at that point anyway, and she just kind of fell in with the crowd and started partying. And before I knew it, she'd married, I think 7 times. She had been married. Moved to Florida my senior year of high school. I don't know, man. She just
wow.
She did whatever the fuck she wanted to do when she wanted to do it, and like I admire her for that. I'm not begrudging her for that. I'm not. This is not like a bash on my mom. My mom was fucking wonderful, but she had her demons, and cocaine got a hold of her pretty good. Obviously, alcohol. Anyway, sorry, I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole.
It's all good. I love rabbit holes on this show because I'm good, man. That's so like that makes me curious because I know exactly what you mean. My parents got divorced when I was a teenager, and kind of I became a very angry young man for a good portion of my 20s until I started kind of learning both sides of the story later on. So I relate to that kind of like tumultuous time, and you just are sort of looking at like how maybe both sides kind of like react to the fallout, and you're just like, oh, I don't know what to do, but you're also trying to get your life started. It's kind of a wild thing to kind of have to navigate at a confusing time and age. So,
well, isn't that just our generation though? Like we could just do a podcast on like this generation's of the divorce. Like we are the divorced generation, and honestly, man, there are fewer of my friends that have parents that are still together. Most everyone I know, their parents are divorced. It's just like a normal thing, I'm not saying there's anything right or wrong with that, but the fact is, it is hard on children. I mean, it's hard on the couple too, but it has lasting effects. And I say this from experience from going through it, but I'm also married and have 2 children, and I can't imagine putting them through that, like what I went through. And I honestly, my parents' divorce is like not even in the top 10 of worst things that's happened in my life. It's just part of who I am. But, ask 12-year-old me, and it was, the biggest deal in the world.
Sure.
But, like you get older and you get some space from it, and you realize like, oh man, I can't believe my parents were ever together. Like they don't make any sense.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, kind of backing up a little bit, like that's why addiction is such a hot topic for me to like write about
Mm-hmm.
and sing about. Like, yeah, I've been through it myself personally with my own addictions, but watching it from the outside in, watching someone you love totally decompose and change over time, and it is really hard to watch, and you feel helpless, like you want to help them, and there's nothing you can do short of chaining them to the radiator for months on end until they get it out of their system. And then what do you do then? You let them go, but you got to keep an eye on them at some point. It's just it's a
Yeah.
hard struggle, man. Like, battling and overcoming addiction is so impossibly hard. So my hat's off to anyone out there that is going through it or watching a loved one go through it. Like, God, man, it is so hard. Sorry, this really kind of took a dark turn, huh?
No, it's I appreciate you like being open with me. I accept your honesty with grace, because yeah, I've had friends like really fall to drugs, and I was that just made me think about, I was listening to the newest single where you specifically mention like opioids and like
Yeah.
the just pervasiveness of fentanyl in the United States right now, and especially like I don't know like exactly what's growing up, your era of growing up in Cincinnati was like, but I feel like whenever I think of Ohio and I think of like those Rust Belt kind of cities, those I feel like are disproportionately affected um by things like by things like this, like drug epidemics and what have you, and loss of manufacturing, all of that stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I call Cincinnati the home of the band. So every band's got to call someplace home. But I actually am from about an hour east of Cincinnati in a town called Bethel, and it's a rural community and a family of farmers. My family raised corn and soybeans and tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, over time, just watched the opioid epidemic just destroy the town and all the communities surrounding it. I mean, obviously, it's not just where I grew up, but it is the entire Rust Belt. I mean, it is the whole Midwest, especially Kentucky, West Virginia. I mean, Jesus Christ, West Virginia, that poor state, man. They need to they need some help. Um,
Yeah.
but it is areas that are less affluent. It has really there's no escape, man. What are you supposed to do? Like,
Mm-hmm.
then the cycle continues. Like, parents are having kids at a young age, teenage pregnancies, and then that cycle continues, and it just never ends uh, until they stop procreating. I mean, it's an unfortunate truth.
Yeah, it creates like a conveyor belt that's really difficult to
Yeah,
get
and it becomes
out
part
of
of the
without
culture.
assistance. Yeah.
Totally, it absolutely just becomes part of the culture, and access to drugs is that's pretty much available. I mean, I could call up 3 or 4 guys right now and pretty much get whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not that I don't actively use anything. I'm just saying that it's not hard to find drugs.
I know what you mean. Well, you mentioned like briefly, like you said that you've dealt with addictions as well. Is that from personal experience, or other people in your family or friend group?
Yeah, no, that's for me. I came by it accidentally, just cocaine and alcohol mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Just from years and years of touring, playing with the band. When you have songs like "Let It Rain," your fans inevitably just assume you party, and they'll bring cocaine to the show and see, like, hey, you want to do a bump? Like, yeah, let's go to the bathroom.
Sure.
So the back in our earlier days, well, the Sunshine and the Shotglass era of the band, it was, we were doing 250, 275 shows a year, and it was like every single
Wow.
night. It was just inescapable, like, especially the alcohol really got me more than anything,
Mm-hmm.
because it's legal, and everywhere we're
Sure.
playing, our job is to be on stage and entertain and sell beer. So
Right.
yeah, it flowed pretty readily. So yeah, and I didn't even really start drinking until I was 21. So like I wasn't like a going to frat parties at a young age and like sneaking beers or fake IDs or any of that shit. Like
Mm-hmm.
I really was a pretty normal, good kid. I didn't get into any trouble ever. And then the second I turned 21, I started touring and it was just like, holy shit, like the world is my oyster. Like,
Right. Yeah.
I just like taking a small kid or taking a kid from a small town and then just letting him travel the world. It's like, it's culture shock. It's just it was such a really amazing eye-opening experience, and it still is to this day. It's still wonderful. Like I don't take any of it for granted. But the alcohol sunk its teeth into me pretty quickly. So let's see. I quit drinking at, I don't know, 28 years old or so, and I was sober until 2020. I didn't drink a drop, or obviously I didn't do any drugs or anything for 8-9 years. And then the pandemic happened, and slowly stepped off the wagon, started having a few drinks, and that's kind of where I'm at now. I just drink socially, and it's going fine. Yeah. Like I'm good.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, you're kind of able to like step back from like have a reasonable amount. That's kind of where I've always been. To give you a sense of like how good that song is, to kind of bring this full circle. I didn't drink when I first heard it, but I got it.
Oh, cool.
if that makes any sense. Like especially that line, like tired. Well, because I think I was dealing with a breakup at the time as well. So I remember that line. I'm getting tired of sitting on this bar stool thinking about you. I saw that. It was like it was like a portrait, like that movie Crazy Heart, before I think it even existed. I was like right there, man. It's just like you distilled like the essence of that time and that experience. But I'm glad you're at a good place with it now, because yeah, I can imagine if you're from like a pretty like rural, because I'm from a rural area as well. Like if you're from like a place where there's like not much to do but go to the bar or go to your friend's house, and then suddenly you're sucked into the gypsy cowboy world of being a band on tour where it's readily available, and kind of encouraged, and you don't have to wake up for the work next day because your office is the van that you parked in the Walmart parking lot overnight.
Yeah.
I could really see that would become part of the routine very quickly.
Yeah. Oh, yep. You hit the nail on the head. That's it. That is it exactly.
So you started. So you said you started touring when you were 21. So this is you pretty much like a couple years out of high school. And was this 500 Miles, or was this another band when you really started hitting the road?
So actually I started touring when I was, I guess, 19. But I still wasn't drinking, and I wasn't, I don't remember what I was doing. God, it feels like so long ago. But yeah, I started the band when I was 19. And we started touring then, but I guess when I was 21 is when we started hitting it like super hard. Which that timeline would make sense. Anyway, no, right out of the gate, I had a couple of bands in high school that were just friends, bands with my friends, and then the second I graduated from high school, I started 500 Miles to Memphis just a few short months later, and that is the only band that I've had ever since. It's like I've played, I've sat in with a lot of musicians and other bands and stuff as, just a fill-in guy. But this is the only band that I've ever had.
Amazing. I love to hear that.
And so weird, right?
Yeah. Like you normally, like, yeah, sometimes like you talk to people that like bounce around from like band to band to band, or like are in like several bands at once. And so from the very beginning, the vision was I'm going to blend like Americana, country, kind of music with punk rock. So when you were growing up, did punk come first, or did like country or Americana? And which one was the one that really hit you first?
Ooh, man, what a good question. I haven't really thought about that. I think the bluegrass and gospel probably came first, just by my grandma was a gospel singer at her church, and had bluegrass musicians in and out of her house all the time. Would have little bluegrass jams, and it was just kind of always there and just a part of life, I guess. So I wouldn't say that I was like a fan of it. It was just there, you know.
Yeah,
part
it's
of
the same
our
as your dining room
family's.
table.
Yeah, yeah. It was just like a part of our family's story, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, then aside from that, then came punk rock. So came with radio. I mean, I remember coming home from school and seeing "Smells Like Teen Spirit" on TV. Shortly after that came Green Day, and then after Green Day, I started diving into like non-radio rock. And one of the first bands I discovered was the Sex Pistols, and I had never heard anything like that in my life. Uh,
Yeah.
just, I mean, the at the time, like the foul language. I mean, he's throwing the f bomb like every other song, and it's like, you're allowed to do that? I didn't know that was allowed. So that, like, Johnny Rotten blew my mind. And then came NoFX and Bad Religion, just the whole West Coast punk, and then
Hmm.
East Coast punk, and the Stooges, and I mean, dude, the list goes on and on. I just, at this time we're mid '90s, I think, and
Hmm.
discovering music was really hard. Like, you couldn't just, it wasn't a click of a mouse. I mean, shit, the internet, I'm not even sure the internet really existed then.
Oh yeah, definitely not the way it is now, for
Well,
sure.
yeah, sure. So yeah, just going to record stores, relying on suggestions from friends. Luckily, this kid moved to my town from the city, and he brought with him his musical knowledge, and he introduced me to a lot of stuff. And he's the reason that I picked up a guitar and started playing. And the first song that we learned was "God Save the Queen."
Uh-huh.
So that was like my introduction to music, to actually like performing it,
Yeah.
and then playing parties and things like that. And man, that the second that we played our first show at a party, I was just hooked. Like, I'm not doing anything else with the rest of my life. This is the most fun I've ever had. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I guess I'm gonna say punk rock came first, and then country came later.
Hmm.
Because bluegrass was just too much a part of the day to day in gospel, and it still is to a degree. I mean, I'm not a religious person by any stretch, but I still play banjo. I still play
Hmm.
acoustic. I still play all those songs, and I don't know, kind of rambling. Sorry.
Oh no, it's all good. I like hearing like I'm making the connections because as you talk, because I when I was riding the bus from like 6th grade to 12th grade, I didn't get my license until late. Um, the my bus driver would always play like the R&B and hip hop station. And they would have like a gospel song on the morning show every day. So I must have heard like Jesus Can Work It Out like 1,000 times over the course of 6 years. Just that sort of like that steady clap. And I was like,
Yep.
there's there's a certain kind of energy to that. Even if like you can, I was definitely moved by it, even though I wouldn't say I was like a very like religious person. Definitely not like in the like Southern Baptist kind of way. Something else, you might be a good person to ask this as well. Is Americana a separate genre from country music, or is Americana just like a overarching thing for country and bluegrass, because I always use it to describe. Well, actually, I'll tell you this joke I do on stages. I say Americana is country for people who shop at Trader Joe's. So
I think that's your answer right there.
Good to know that resonates with someone else.
The term Americana is so broad and wonderful. It can be used to describe a Norman Rockwell painting. It can be used to describe music. It can be used to describe the Rust Belt. It can be used for so many things. But the thing I love about it is just so American. Obviously, America is in the name, but it is such a proud American. It invokes this vibe in me that I really appreciate, because I do consider myself a patriot. I do love this country. There's a lot that I hate about it, but the good things are wonderful. And, like a slice of apple pie, a good Norman Rockwell painting, a good country song, bluegrass,
jazz,
Appalachian
the entire
music.
genre of jazz. Yeah.
Anyway, but I like that Americana. What did you say? It's country music for people that shop at Trader Joe's.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
A friend of mine, he's really big into that style, like your Brian Fallon's, like all that kind of style of music. So he'll appreciate that. Rad, man, because and again, similarly, like I've always thought about in kind of drawing this line between this Americana and country and punk, because it makes total sense to me now, because punk is 3 chords in the truth, and my favorite country music is 3 chords in the truth, and it's like stories about real people and the things that they deal with, and of giving the middle finger to the fucking establishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's what it was supposed to be. And what we call country music these days, my God, I mean, it's pop garbage bullshit. And I mean, pandering nonsense. And people eat it up. I don't understand why it has gone on as long as it has. But whatever. I'm thankful for the Trader Joe Americana bands, like Jason Isbell.
Yes, Jason Isbell, like the Wilcos,
Sturgill Simpson.
Oh yeah, love Sturgill Simpson. I am Ryan Bingham. I love him as well.
Yeah, he's great.
Great songer. So 21, and you hit the road. So I'm curious. I want to ask you. So 500 miles to Memphis. You say you're currently playing like 200 something plus dates a year. Was that always the case when you started? Did you just like hit the road and not come off it, pretty much?
So I'm not doing 200 shows a year now. I scaled that back a few years ago. But yeah, I mean, it definitely took time to get the momentum going, because no one knew who the hell we were, and we weren't very good. So it took some time to really get things going. Once we released our first record, we started getting shows booked, and started doing some festivals. And then once we released our second album, which is the one that has Sunshine and Shotglass, that album. We got signed. It put us on the map. We're all over radio, TV, movies. Like it was. You hear stories about overnight successes, and it certainly wasn't overnight. But that was our turning point with the band. Like we released the record, and a few short months later, we were living on the road. We were selling out venues. People were coming to shows, and it was like, holy shit! I'm only used to like 5 people showing up at like a tiny bar gig, and now all of a sudden we're doing like mid-sized venues and selling them out, and it was a really amazing thing, especially for a young guy. I guess probably at that time I was 23 when that came out, and yeah, it was a wild ride, and way unexpected. Like I never set out with the intent to like sell out venues. Like I just wanted to play music. I just like writing songs and playing guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden it became a job, and it was exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And now here I am.
That's
20 years later, still doing it.
that's amazing, man. Because when you said that, I was like, I would love to do 200 shows a year. How do you get to 100 shows a year? I that's so many emails to send.
Oh, brother, you are not kidding. So I've always self-managed as well.
Oh my God, you poor thing.
Yeah, I just worked we would stop at coffee shops so I could get internet, just go to an internet cafe and send emails, book. And that was one thing that really helped the band a lot, was the internet and technology. You know, I was able to manage the band from a laptop, which, you know, probably a few years prior to that, you couldn't have done. And then all of a sudden, these repositories start showing up on the internet, just like lists of venues in every single town. And it kind of became just easy. It was just like point and click. I want to play this venue on this day, and you know, just send them an email, tell them, you know, what we need, and that was it. Things are a little different now because the market is just so flooded. There are a lot of bands out there. There are a lot of entertainment
everyone's
options.
On the road now.
Yeah, it's a little different now. It used to be a lot easier, but oh well.
What are some of your favorite cities to play?
Chicago, Dallas, Charlotte, North Carolina, DC. Pittsburgh is becoming one of my favorites. I'm really enjoying Pittsburgh lately. LA. I think those are my favorites.
Very, very cool. Well, yeah, Pittsburgh, because I know the Anti-Flight guys are from there. There's probably a lot of cool bands out of Pittsburgh nowadays. And you're saying DC. So where I'm from, I grew up about an hour south of DC in Maryland. So like super kind of, yeah. Those are my origins before I moved to New York.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So where are you in New York?
I live in Astoria, Queens.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I have you played? Did you ever like play New York or do like East Coast runs?
Oh yeah, a lot. We've played. I mean, I know we've played Williamsburg a lot, and then we've played Manhattan. I couldn't tell you the name of the venue. Arlene's Grocery, actually. Think of it.
Yeah, Arlene's Grocery.
Times.
Yeah, in the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay, so is that Manhattan cool spot. Or is that?
Yeah, that's Manhattan. That would be like it's interesting, like the kind of way where the artists have migrated over the course of New York's history. After like the East Village got expensive, everyone moved to the Lower East Side. Then Lower East Side got expensive, everyone moved to Williamsburg. Now we're just going further and further out. Is kind of how it's operated. But yeah, Lower East Side that's a great place to play. I also when my friends come through town and occasionally would ask my band to open for them, we would play this really cool venue in Brooklyn called Sovern. That's an outdoor space, and I've played it when it's fucking hot as shit, and I've played it when it's 30 degrees.
Oh, the cold gigs, dude. Oh, I cannot do the cold gigs.
Yeah, I can just imagine, like, I was just playing bass, so it's like, okay, I can chug on this bass line, but I can imagine, like, if I was, like, a lead guitarist, and, like, my hands were all cold and, like, cramping, I was like, all right, let's do a blues lick or a melodic lick. It's gnarly, dude. All right, so Sunshine the Shot Glass comes out. This gives you this kind of, like, burst of momentum. You hit the road hard. I'd love to ask you, because you have so many amazing studio albums out now. How do you think how do you feel? Do you feel like your approach to songwriting has changed from the beginning of the band. How do you think it's changed or refined over the years?
Well, it's gotten harder. In that, at this point in my career, I've written, 100 to maybe 200 songs. Honestly, I don't know. And I've written a lot of instrumentals for, licensing and sync opportunities. So my approach now is it's a lot harder because you have to be careful not to retread the same shit you've already written before.
Right.
But specifically for 500 Miles to Memphis, like, I try to push the genre and I try to push the sound as much as I can, but then there's also this little thing in the back of your head that's like, well, you can't forget where you came from. And there is a certain sound we have that, like, I don't want to deny, because I don't want to call it fan service by any stretch, but there is an identity built into this group that I try to maintain. It's a fine line to walk, trying to push to a new sound, but also maintaining what you have. And then lyrically, lyrically has gotten easier with age. I think with age comes with age comes wisdom. I'm not saying that I'm wise, but I'm certainly more wise now than I was 20 years ago. So lyrically, it's gotten easier to write. In the beginning, I was just writing about partying, drinking, doing blow, and girls, and breakups, and the occasional love song. And that was just the shit that my teenage brain was writing, and as I've gotten older, taking on more serious topics, and so lyrically, I think it's gotten easier, but musically, I think it's harder because you're trying to push your sound, but not too much.
Sure. Like you want to, there's a certain side of your brain that's sort of like, well, I don't want to radically change the sound of the band because there's people that like us because we sound like that, but you also want to try to keep it interesting for yourself and like push yourself to do different things.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think any artist in general, no matter the medium, if it's music, painting, comedy, I think once you've been doing it for a long time, you have to keep it interesting for yourself. That's the only way you're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like you have to. Art is not art if it's not honest. So as long as you're being honest with your creation, I think you're probably on the right path. And that's what I've always tried to do, is just be honest to who I am, and it usually turns out okay.
Excellent. Yeah, that's the only thing you can really do as a creator, because if you're not, then you might as well just have a regular job if you're not going to create what you want to create or who you are. It's one of the few things where you're allowed to be exactly who you are, for all of the good and bad, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure, man. And comedy, I can't imagine doing that. How often do you gig? I'm assuming you do stand up, right?
Yeah, stand up. It was the pandemic kind of slowed me down a little bit. I'm starting to up that number again, and I've got like big plans. Like I did shows in Paris last year, but as far as like stuff in New York, I want to start upping that number again, because usually like it would not be too uncommon to do like maybe 4 shows, like 4 nights a week, and do like several sets a night. Like you start at like a 6 o'clock. You start maybe you do like an open mic at 6 o'clock, and then you run and you do a show at 7, then maybe you go do another show at 8:30, and there's another show that is ending, but you can get there before it ends because you're going to close the show, and you just kind of like go bop bop bop. Like that's the fun of doing comedy in New York, is that you can just go all around the city. I remember like I had friends like when I first moved here would not be out of sorts to do like 15 to 20 sets a week.
That's amazing. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
it.
mean, the craft of it though, I have always respected. And like, man, to get up there, no instrument, you're just talking, and you have to be interesting. You have to be saying something that resonates with people, and you can't sing it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's amazing to me.
Yeah. And conversely, I've always had like the most amount of like respect and reverence for bands, and especially like solo performers. Like if you were ever going to do like when it's like the acoustic song in the set, just the idea of like playing and singing solo with like nothing else to color what's happening. That's real vulnerability to me. Like I've gone and said some pretty like off not really off color things because I've always been pretty in uh clean on stage, but I've gotten really vulnerable on stage, and when that doesn't go well, it can hurt.
Oh
Like
boy, yeah,
when it doesn't go well, and the thing is like it has to not go well for in order for it to go well eventually.
yeah. You have to learn from. I mean, I've done a ton of solo touring and solo performances, and there are nights where you bomb, and there are nights where you can do nothing wrong, and it has less to do with you and more to do with your audience, and are they ready to receive some entertainment?
Yeah,
Are their minds open enough and ready for this? But it is brutal, and it hurts your feelings when you're up there doing your thing and no one gives a shit. Oh boy, man, it hurts.
oh
It
my
hurts
god.
bad.
Yeah, you just you kind of become ambient music. You're like, all right, well, just get through this, get on to the next the next spot. So and so you would so when would you do solo tours? So Sunshine. So after Sunshine, next album's a couple years after that. Would you do solo tours in between album
I've always,
cycles?
yeah, I've always played solo. I've never released a solo record, but I have always gone out and then just performed solo. Sometimes it's with a guitar, sometimes it's banjo. Um, but it's always 500 miles to Memphis songs. I just do
Mm-hmm.
them solo. Um, but I mean, actually, I think I'm doing one this Saturday for Record Store Day. Uh, I mean, I always prefer playing with the band, but I enjoy doing the solo thing. It keeps my chops up and it keeps me honest. And again, like you're saying, there's no one to hide behind. The mistakes you make are your own. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's a good challenge because if you can entertain with just you, then when you have the whole band, it's just like it makes it that much better. I think.
Totally. Do you play acoustic or do you do like the solo electric like Billy Bragg?
Oh no, I've never done that actually. I just do acoustic. I do the
Hmm.
acoustic and the banjo.
Very very cool. And when did you learn to play banjo? Was that early when you were growing up as well, or did that come later?
Uh, I didn't take it seriously until much later in life. I was probably 30. Yeah, actually, I know what it was. My wife and I got engaged, and it was my engagement present. She got me a banjo, and that was when I decided to take it seriously. But yeah, I always kind of like picked around on it and played it a little bit. But when you're doing gospel songs, you don't really have to. You can strum. Like you
Uh-huh.
don't really have to be that good to sing in church.
Right on.
uh,
Gotcha. Yeah, like especially like that kind of church cuz my other idea of music in church is like the worship band which has like I don't know if you know this YouTuber Alex Melton. He does like what if this pop punk band wrote this non-pop punk song, and he occasionally will do these like when the worship band is really into Yellow Card or Boys Like Girls. and and and
uh,
and my take on that, I haven't been to one of these services, but my take on it is like you just have like a 25-minute synth pad, and then you just kind of like slowly play like an acoustic guitar, maybe like 80 beats per minute at the most, and then you have like one of those massive like 20 pedal boards, and it's like 6 reverbs and like 10 choruses and like 4 delays, and then like 3 hours later you get to leave.
That sounds like mega church.
Yeah, it's definite mega church.
Yeah.
When you play banjo, or like when you incorporate banjo into songs, because the banjo is in standard tuning on banjo is an open chord. Do you have to play a particular kind of way, or like retune it depending on the key of a song?
Yeah, so most songs, so banjo is tuned to open G. So most songs you can just play with the open tuning. The key of E is kind of hard, so you need to retune or use a capo for E. But there are all kinds of different tunings that you can do. I mostly just stick with open G. Like, it's just where I'm comfortable, and actually most of my songs are in G and A anyway, so it's kind of keep it easy. You know, banjo is not like, it's not my first instrument, so it's less of a focus for me. You know, like I know just enough on banjo to be dangerous and to sit in with people and, you know, play on a record here or there. But, you know, I'm certainly no Bella Fleck or Earl Scruggs, you know.
Gotcha. If there was advice you could give like a younger songwriter, or even yourself, knowing what you know now, what is something you would want to tell like a newer songwriter?
Well, if it's a young songwriter trying to start a band, I would say play with people that are better than you. Surround yourself with people that are better than you. Go to open mic nights. Actually, that's a big one. Go to open mic nights, like as many as you can. A lot of open mic nights, and I'm sure it's the same, you know, in the comedy world as well. Like, some of them can be brutal.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yes.
there's a lot of people that maybe shouldn't be there. But it is good to be around other creatives, especially other creatives that are better than you. Like, you can learn from them. You know, like, that's what I did. You know, I started out going to open mic nights, and I befriended a bunch of guys that were way better than me, still are better. And you just kind of learn some tricks of the trade, and you're in it, you're living it. You know, it's more than just sitting at your house and just trying to write. You know, like, you're getting out and you're being social, and you're being a part of the musical community and the artistic community. And I think there's a lot to be said for community. And I personally, I think I owe my entire career to the Cincinnati musical community. Just because it's God, I hate to use the word fucking synergize, but it's the only word I can think of right now. There is a synergy there that you guys, like, everyone starts getting together. There's multiple different genres, different ideas. I mean, you talk politics, you talk song structure, you talk, I mean, everything, man. Everything's on the table. And this community is built, and I think it just makes you better in general. So yeah, that's my advice. Find people that are better than you. Hit some open mic nights. Try to get involved in the local musical community as much as you can. Like, it's going to help you in the long run.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Getting like exposed to some new ideas, or like some new ways of doing something. Like, that can't help but inform and make your main thing that you're doing interesting. Like, how else do you end up with like a band like yours if you're not doing that, is kind of what I think there. Absolutely, man.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I mean, I think I easily could have started a punk band back in the day, and I know that I considered it at the time when I was forming this group, because my bands in high school, one of them was like a Radiohead rip-off band, and the other one was just like a straight up Screeching Weasel Queers punk band. And so when it came time, when I was ready to like front a band and like do my own thing and just try it out, the first question I asked myself is, all right, well, what genre? What band am I going to start here? and I had this love of bluegrass and country and Americana, but also couldn't forget, punk rock, because that was my first love. My first musical love was definitely punk rock. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I just decided on both, and I think our first album is a bit of a train wreck, which you probably have not heard, and I don't suggest you listen to it, but it's like half of it sounds like Neil Young, and the other half sounds like fucking Newfound Glory. It doesn't make any sense. Like, we hadn't figured out, or I hadn't figured out how to blend the genres. So you have one song that's just Newfound Glory, and then another song that's just Neil Young, and it kind of ping pongs back and forth.
Sure.
So yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, it's like it's like George Carlin's AM FM. It's like one side we're doing this, one side we're doing that.
Right.
You've definitely figured out, and then you've put out like what, 6 full lengths?
I think 6 or 7. Yeah.
Awesome. And you guys have a new single that's out. So I'm curious to ask you, is this single like a prelude to a record that'll be coming out in the future?
No, it's not. This is its own standalone little project. So boy, where to begin? It's a song that I wrote that I just absolutely loved. And, it's got a good message and I think is relevant, and I wanted it to be heard. And rather than taking the time to write an entire record to follow up this song, I wanted to just release a song, because I've never done that before. I've never just released a single. I've always written records, because I love records. Yeah. That's how we grew up. That's how you listen to music. We didn't, digest singles. Like we listened to albums, and so I've always written albums. So this is the first time that I've just written a song just for the sake of writing a song and released it. And that's pretty much it. It's not a prelude. It's not a part of a larger project. It exists on its own little island. I love it. I'm proud of it. And all the proceeds that for that song are going to a local organization called Casa for Claremont Kids. So it's a win-win,
That's really cool. That's really cool, man. I didn't know that the charity angle on this. That's really awesome that you're doing that for this song, because it's a great song. Again, it combines so much of what you do that I enjoy. It's got that super fast punk beat. It's got the kind of country like intro. It's a banger, man, and you have like albums full of bangers. So
well, thanks, man. I really appreciate you saying that. I do. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. I like, there is something to like. I still remember. And then to ask you, I would love to ask you about another song, and I'll tell you this story as well. So I mentioned I discovered you in college. So when I graduated, because I discovered, because I heard this album around the time I was getting ready to head out into the real world, and a friend of mine had put together like a montage of photos from throughout the years of us in like our different costumes and goofing off backstage, and the song they put under it was "All My Friends Are Crazy." which fit pretty well. I hate to ask you about another Sunshine and a Shot Glass song, but
that's okay.
I'd love to know what was kind of like the inspiration and the behind that song as well.
So that one, it starts off with the line, "All my friends are crazy," and that is the sentiment of the song. Like that's it. At that time I wrote that, I felt like I was like the most stable and normal person out of my friend group. I wasn't, but I thought I was. And just night after night of being in the bars, touring, being in the bars when I'm not touring, and just watching my friends just be chaotic and just sitting back sipping a beer, just feel like you're watching, a reality TV show. Just like, man, you motherfuckers are just crazy. Like, how are we friends? Just sitting back and judging my friends. That is pretty much all it's about, man. It's a real simple song, simple idea. Like there's no like sob sad story behind it. It's just, I love my friends for better or worse, and that is all it's about.
That's great. I love the friendship songs in punk rock. I also have another theory. If I was ever going to write a doctoral thesis about punk rock, I would make this. So we're talking about this idea of community, and I'm also thinking that, you know how punk and pizza are like synonymous.
Yes.
So punk is about community. Punk is about uniting against uniting in a common goal. Punk is about friendship. And what other style of food is more perfectly suited to friends and community other than pizza?
Hot dogs, cheeseburgers and hot dogs. Anything you can get at a ballpark.
Oh, that's a good point. Like if you got like the friend with the grill, that becomes like the home base. I forget about that up in the city. It's harder to grill up here.
Oh, really? You got huh. That's the thing. Like, you can't have a grill?
Well, I live in an apartment, so some of the parks do have like grills that you can like set up, but it's not
wow.
this.
Yeah, you can't have a grill on a patio or on like a porch or anything, can you?
No, I have no porch.
Holy shit. Huh. I've like literally never even considered that before. Yeah, dude. Well, first off, I'm sorry. Because ground beef is like the cheapest thing you can buy, and so are hot dogs. And no, you could always just do it on the skillet, but it's not the same. A grill, it's a social thing, dude. Yeah. Like having friends over for a cookout, dogs, burgers, lots of cheese, all the carbs.
Exactly. You get a nice carb coma going, so that by the time the lights go down, you can start like lighting stuff on fire. Doesn't have to be 4th of July. It could just be a day.
Yeah, anytime. Oh yeah, just ask my neighbors. I mean, there's hillbillies around here lighting up fireworks like year round. And I don't know where they get them, and I don't know why they're doing it, but it scares the shit out of my dog. And it's just like, God, stop with the fucking fireworks already. Anyway.
Oh my God. I have a couple more things I'd love to ask you about because I'm just enjoying this chat so much. You mentioned that you do like write music and stuff for like licensing or sync. How did that start?
That started with the record label Deep Elm, which they released Sunshine in a Shot Glass, and they opened a lot of doors for me, and I, got introduced to a lot of people over the years, and actually, gosh, now there are like every single studio, not just in Cincinnati, but I mean just across the nation. If you aren't recording sync music, I mean, you're not making any money. Some of the best, most successful studios in town are, working for P&G, doing commercials for Tide and whatever, just products at the grocery store. I mean, every single commercial needs music. So yeah, they just stay busy doing that. So I've gotten connected through that, just through that community. There's a lot of like microbrews that have popped up, and they need music. They need their own theme songs. They need, say they're running a radio ad and they want a rock and roll song behind it. Then I can do that. Sometimes they'll just use my already existing music, like they want a 500 Miles to Memphis song for their new beer they're releasing. So that's easy. That's like, well, here you go. It's already recorded, so I don't have to like write and record anything.
Those are easy. So yeah, just like the little like kind of boppy like with like some like acoustic guitar or something. Like
Yeah. So
there are a lot of
a lot of my recordings, most of my recordings are not like rock and roll, punk rock. Most of it is like folky, bluegrass shit. Like they want something that sounds like the Lumineers. Like, okay, well, here you go. Here's a ukulele and a banjo and an accordion and some hand claps. There's your jingle. And you know, I say that like I'm complaining, but it's fun. I enjoy doing it.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it would be fun. I could totally kind of get it my head around that idea because it's like writing with for a goal. It's kind of an interesting exercise. I've always I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to do this, but like I'm learning that like a lot of other bands that I follow, like the person like is also like a songwriter behind the scenes as well for other artists. So I always thought that would be an interesting challenge to try to like write a song uh geared for like someone else singing or performing. Have you ever done that?
Well, yes. It, yes, I have, and I'll leave it at that. It did not go well. It ended poorly,
Gotcha.
and I have not done it since. But there are, I know a lot of guys that, you know, they live in Nashville and that's all they do. And more power to them. I mean, that's cool. I mean, it's not for me. It's not, I don't know. It's probably because I'm an artist and I want to perform my own songs, you know. Um, Not to sound judgy. I mean, because like everyone's got to make money, you know. Like if you can write songs for someone else and make a living, good for you. Anyway, yeah. To answer your question, yeah, I tried it for a bit and it didn't work out.
I got you. There's just certain things like I know exactly what you mean. Like it's you know there's something to like playing your own stuff and doing your own thing. Like I I thought about that a lot. Like I'm sure that I could probably take lessons and really focus in on playing like bass well. Uh and could get and could work on like okay, I'll play at this R&B band or this church gig. But again, I always come back to like well then I would just have just have a regular job. It's not what
Yeah.
I'm excited about. Got to be excited to make art otherwise I just feel embarrassed and I can't give what they want, you know?
Yeah, man, I do. I totally understand. Like you can't force your heart to be in it, you know. Like same with writing. As I'm sure, you know, when you're writing, you know, your next set, it's hard to force yourself to sit down and write. Like I want to be inspired to sit down and write. You know, like it is really. You hear songwriters say all the time, like, "Well, you have to carve out an hour every day or 2 hours every day and just write," and it's just such a trope. And like, man, I don't work that way. Like I need to feel it. I need to be inspired in order to say something meaningful. And I always try to say something meaningful. You know, I may have songs about my friends being crazy and whatever. And it's not the deepest song in the world, but it resonates. And it means something to me when I say those words. You know what I mean?
I do. And it means something to the people who hear it because they feel seen in that moment by that song and those words. Especially like I have definitely had the experience of driving or being on the road and turning on the radio and a song just it's like they're watching me because they're literally just like writing exactly what I'm feeling in that moment. Is 500 miles to Memphis like doing any touring this year?
Yeah, we got some dates. Gosh, I guess starting in July. And then we're gonna take it easy. I think late summer, fall. We're just gonna like just take a little bit of a break because we released our new record in 2021, toured that pretty heavy. So usually we're on like a 2-year cycle where we'll release a record, play a shitload, and then kind of chill out for a bit. So that's kind of where we're at now. We're kind of coming down until we
Gotcha.
write another record and start the cycle all over
again.
Start
it all over again. Absolutely. Have you ever toured internationally?
No. I would love to, but we have a 7-piece band. Well, 6, 7, it's interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
I never really had the opportunity to do it, and I've never, well, like I said, because I self-manage, so like I don't know shit about it. I don't know the first thing there is to know about touring overseas, and at this point in the game, it's like feels like it's too late for us. You know, it's something that I should have done and looked into in my younger years, but at this point, it's like, man, I don't know if I can take this band overseas and have 0 people show up and just lose money. Like, I don't think we could afford to do it.
No.
So if anyone out there is listening and can help, that would be awesome.
Yeah, maybe there's like a pocket of like super fans somewhere. I've always had this like crazy idea. The idea of being like big in Japan is very appealing to me. Like just the idea you could like like just be like you could just be totally anonymous. Then you just go over there and play like a huge show. I remember reading an article. I think it was on Noisy. Fat Mike was talking about like his favorite Fat Records releases he's ever put out, and he was talking about this album by a band called High Standard, who are based in Japan. Their drummer just sadly passed away. They play apparently like they were at the point where they're playing just like one show, but they would sell out like the baseball stadium in Tokyo.
Yeah. Shit. Wow.
Like that's
awesome.
Like I just love that punk rock gets to that place. It sounds so cool, man. So I'm holding out hope for you, Ryan. I think
hey, me too, man. I hope is not lost. I just don't know how the hell to make it happen. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, you might have to change the name of the band to Kilometers, because for overseas.
That's what's been holding us back this whole time. No one knows what Memphis is, and no one knows what miles are. No, but honestly, it's just because I'm probably just a shitty manager. That's what happened.
Well, you seem like you've figured something amazing out, and I love to see it. And again, I know I've been asking about Sunshine a lot, but I want to say I do really love the new single. I love the pointedness of the lyrics, especially like when it talks about like singers that don't write their own songs. I really vibe with that. So I'm looking forward to what you do, Mex. Last thing I'd love to ask you before we get out here. I tried to save the guitar nerdery for the end of the show.
Sure.
So I've been looking at this like Mike Ness Les Paul behind you with the P90s.
Oh, well, yeah. I have a great story behind this one. So this is my main rig now. This is a Les Paul Classic. It's a relatively new guitar. It was built in 2018, but it belonged to our lap steel player, David Brown, and David just passed away in December.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This past year. And David was he was our lap steel player. He was a really huge, integral part of our band for 15 years. But yeah, he got lung cancer and he passed away. But before he did, he sold off his estate and sold all of his instruments. And so I went to his estate sale and I bought as much as I possibly could afford. And he had this gold top that he used to play with us live. So I could not see that guitar going to anyone else. So I made it mine. Wow. And it's my baby.
That's beautiful.
Here's my band, my punk rock banjo.
Amazing.
This is the one my wife got me for our engagement 10 years ago. And
spectacular.
Yeah, I'll see what else. Show and tell time. So that bass right there, I bought from David's estate as well. It's a full size Fender P bass. Mm-hmm. And then I've got this Epiphone Les Paul here. It's like a $300 guitar, but I changed all the hardware out, put EMGs in it, and it sounds so good. This is my acoustic. This is my PRS acoustic. I've written almost every song of my life on that guitar, and I've got all kinds of other instruments laying around.
Super cool. You like Bigsby's? I'm noticing. Do those
I
have?
do not play a guitar without a Bigsby. Every guitar I buy, I put a Bigsby on, unless it's like a Fender, of course. But I don't really play Fender, so. Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah. Do Bigsby's do you have any issues with them staying in tune? I know Les Paul sometimes can be a little finicky, but does the Bigsby help with that or?
No, I mean, I definitely wouldn't say Bigsby helps. But I've been playing Bigsby for so long, I'm used to it. But I never, I don't have tuning problems with any of my guitars, and they all have Bigsby bridges on them. So, actually, I will tell you a trick for the Bigsby is you have to get a roller bridge. That's where you're going to get tuning problems. The stock bridge that comes with most Gibsons is the Tune-o-matic, and the Tune-o-matic is not made for the whammy bar or a Bigsby or a tremolo bar, whatever you want to call it. It's not really made for that flex. Whereas a roller bridge, the strings can glide back and forth over top of the bridge, so there's no friction there. So they're freely moving. So once you get them tuned, they typically stay in tune.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's really handy.
The Shaler roller bridge. I would put them on. I mean, even a guitar that doesn't have a whammy bar or a tremolo bar, I would put a roller bridge on every instrument I have. I would suggest if you're having tuning problems.
Amazing. This is so cool, and I had no idea that there's such a story behind those instruments. But yeah, you have to. Yeah, that could not have gone to anyone else. That's got to stay within the band. I'm so sorry to the loss of your friend and bandmate, but I'm glad that his memory can kind of carry on by making music with his equipment. So
yeah, he was a legend, man. His name is David Rhodes Brown. Look him up. He was a Kentucky colonel. He was a reverend. He made it into the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame. Actually, he just got inducted in February. I mean, dude played. He played punk in the 70s. Like when punk was not even. They weren't even calling it punk when punk was invented. He had a punk band in the 70s, and then he got into new wave, and then he got into blues, and he got semi-famous. Well, he did get famous for his blues style guitar, and he played with H. Bump Ferguson, Bo Diddley. Oh God, who else? He's played with a lot of rock and roll Hall of Famers. And then later in life, he started a bluegrass band. And then when I met him, he was like 57 years old when I met him. And he joined 500 Miles to Memphis and started playing lap steel for us. And we started like writing songs together. And he was a really big part of Sunshine and Shotglass. Actually, he funded the record. So we weren't signed yet. And he funded that record. And then we were able to, send a tangible product to some record labels. And Deep Elm was the first to, bite. Actually, they were the only label to bite. We didn't have multiple offers. We only had one offer, and it was from Deep Elm. But none of that would have happened if David had not, just jumped off the cliff for us and took a chance.
Wow, what a guy!
Yeah, he was incredible human.
Wow, what a gift and what a life story. That's amazing, man. I'm so glad that you got to work with him and have this experience. That's truly amazing. And dude, I can't wait to hear what you do next. As I said, I've been a fan since like 2007, 2008. So I will. You come through New York again. I'll be there. Is there anything else?
Sweet.
Is there anything else we can plug before we get out here?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Our 20-year anniversary show is coming up in June. We have some limited edition 20-year variant vinyls coming out at that time as well. So we just reissued Sunshine in a Shot Glass on vinyl, which is the first time it's been on vinyl in 15 years. We have our new album, Hard to Love, which we just released a few months ago. But anyway, everything is getting a 20-year variant coming up. And it's got a lot of extra inserts and stories about the band, and if you're into vinyl and love thumbing through artwork and reading while you're listening to a record, you'll really enjoy these vinyls.
Awesome.
So that's coming. Well, that's the only thing I have to plug, other than our shows, which I can't think of off the top of my head.
Well, I'll have the links to the website in the description. Dude, this was incredible. So thank you again so much, Ryan. I really appreciate all of the great music and the great conversation. This has been a real joy. Thank you.
Well, likewise, man. And if you're ever on a comedy tour and come through Cincinnati, let me know, because I will be there.
I will hit you up. I will let you know. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
It's so cool to me that this podcast has afforded me the opportunity to speak to people whose art has meant so much to me. And this is absolutely one of those episodes. That was a wonderful conversation. So many things that I didn't know about the music business and about the 500 miles to Memphis's music. That was truly spectacular, folks. If you enjoyed that conversation, Ryan's band is amazing. They have an incredible roster of amazing albums. 500 Miles to Memphis listen to them everywhere you get your music, and keep your eye out for more things in the future. So that is our show for today. Links to everything related to Ryan and 500 Miles in the description. If you enjoyed this podcast and think you know a friend who would be interested in it as well, you can send them to awesomedisaster.com. That is links to the show on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. If you want to help us please our algorithmic overlords, if you want to hit subscribe, I would sincerely appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at ComicWillCarry, at WillCarry23 on Instagram. And if you want to go a little bit further in your support of the show, you can check out our merch store, and you can also sign up for our Patreon, which is patreon.com/awesomedisaster. Check out a lot of exclusive stuff I've put over there, and feel free to let me know what you would want in a Patreon, because I'm always open to ideas. A lot of this show is me getting to do what I love, and if that is also in line with what you love, I want to make sure you're getting your dollar's worth out of that Patreon. So thank you all again so much for being here. We're going to see what 37 looks like. About a week in now. So far, it's been going all right. So I appreciate each and every one of you for being here, and I will see you next time between Awesome and Disaster. Stay safe, wear a mask, get vaccinated and boosted, and stomp out fascism. Take care, everybody.